some changes in the way in which children were diagnosed at outcome. Now, all children at the end of the intervention were still on the spectrum. But what we found was that children in the Early Start Denver model group tended to go from autism to pervasive developmental disorder, which is a less severe diagnosis more frequently, and that the reverse pattern was true for the children in the community group. Now, here are the measures that have to do with brain activity. Now, I told you earlier on that we had a paradigm that we had used in previous studies where we used brain potentials to both faces and objects. So we used a very similar paradigm. And these children now were at outcome, so they were above 48 months of age. And we also brought in a typical group, so typical 4-year-olds to measure their brain responses in a similar situation. And when we looked at the event brain potential, we found if we looked at the early components in the ERP to faces, that there really wasn't a difference between the groups, that all 3 groups looked pretty normal. But if we looked at the later components in the ERP, so these are the components that have to do with attentional engagement, this is NC, that we did see differences. And essentially what we found was that the children in the typical group and the children that received Early Start Denver model had much faster responses to faces than objects, whereas children in the community group had the reverse pattern. Now, in addition, what we did was to conduct spectral analysis of the EEG signal during the viewing of faces as compared to the viewing of objects. Now, we derived 2 measures from the spectral analysis. One is alpha, and essentially when you see reductions in alpha, that is